Imagine a guy, right, completely blind, just standing right in the middle of a chaotic, high-end hotel kitchen.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, waitstaff are rushing past him with, boiling pots, people are shouting orders, and yet he navigates the entire space flawlessly.
Unbelievable.
And it gets crazier. Imagine that same guy is entirely responsible for the hotel's daily cash deposits.
Wait, really? The cash?
The cash. He's standing there, blind, and he's perfectly sorting thousands of dollars in different denominations just by the tactile feel of the paper, like organizing them into specific pockets of his clothes.
That sounds like a scene from a movie or something.
Right. But what if I told you that this exact same intense, laser-focused spatial awareness is the exact tool this man uses to intentionally force a biological upgrade of his own nervous system?
It is just a staggering image to start with. And I mean, it perfectly encapsulates the reality of who we're examining today.
Right.
We're looking at a life that completely blurs the lines between intense physical pragmatism and the absolute outer limits of human biological potential.
Exactly. So for you listening, you might be prepping for a meeting right now, or maybe you're out walking the dog, and you're probably used to hearing about longevity in very sterile terms.
Right, like cold plunges, wearable sleep trackers, that sort of thing.
Yeah, or some crazy expensive supplements. But today's deep dive is going in a completely different direction. We are unpacking the 50-year, battle-tested methodology of a master practitioner named Osman.
Who is widely known across his platforms as the blind Muslim yogi.
Yes, the blind Muslim yogi. And our mission today is to explore his fiercely practical, scientifically grounded blueprint for unlocking dormant human hardware.
Yeah, we are completely bypassing the idea that you have to go, I don't know, live in a Himalayan cave for 20 years.
We are aiming straight at what he believes is an achievable, measurable, biological evolution.
And we are incredibly fortunate to have a really comprehensive source text to guide this exploration.
Mm.
I mean, we're looking at an extensive transcript provided by Osman himself.
This isn't theoretical at all.
No, not at all. This is a master-level bioenergy healer documenting 5 decades of relentless daily practice.
Decades?
Yeah, 50 years. He's taking us through a methodology where he has extracted protocols from across multiple cultures, stripped away the dogma, and really just combined them into something new.
And what's most compelling is that he doesn't just rely on ancient esoteric texts, right? He cross-references his results with modern quantum physics, cellular biology, and, data-driven scientific sources.
Which is so rare in this space.
Okay, let's unpack this right out of the gate, because I know what you might be thinking. When we use phrases like bioenergy healer or yogic mastery, it is very easy to imagine someone sitting cross-legged, floating away on a cloud of metaphysical bliss.
Completely detached from reality.
Exactly. But I want to make this explicitly clear to everyone listening. Osman's entire framework is built for the 21st century.
Yeah.
It's about optimizing your physical and mental machinery so you can navigate your messy, demanding modern life with more resilience. But to understand how this system works, we really have to look at the architect. We have to establish the guideline of who Osman actually is.
Which is an extraordinary baseline, honestly. Yeah. Osman operates at a master level in bioenergy healing, and he specifically focuses on critical care, advanced recovery, and terminal illnesses.
That's a heavy focus.
It is. And he approaches this not as magic, but as applied physics. He says he utilizes the principles of quantum entanglement for what he terms telepathic healing.
Okay, wait, pause right there. Telepathic healing of terminal illnesses. I mean, my skeptical alarm bells are definitely ringing, and I'm sure yours are too if you're listening.
It's a bold claim.
We have to be incredibly precise here, especially when we start talking about critical care. Biologically, scientifically, how is he framing that claim? Like, how does quantum entanglement fit into human physiology?
Well, it's exactly the right question to ask. And it requires us to define our terms carefully. In quantum physics, entanglement is a phenomenon where 2 particles become linked.
Right.
So the state of one instantly influences the state of the other, regardless of the physical distance between them. I mean, even if they are light years apart. Einstein famously called this spooky action at a distance.
Right, I heard that quote.
So Osman's methodology operates on the hypothesis that human consciousness and the bioelectric fields generated by the human nervous system can also be entangled.
Oh, wow.
He isn't claiming to wave a magic wand. He's suggesting that through decades of intense neurological training, a practitioner can entangle their highly organized, high-frequency biofield with the disorganized or sick biofield of a patient.
So providing like an energetic template?
Exactly,
Yeah.
providing a template for the patient's cells to begin repairing themselves.
So to use an analogy, it's kind of like taking a perfectly tuned tuning fork, striking it, and then placing it next to a tuning fork that is vibrating chaotically.
Yes, perfect analogy.
The strong, coherent frequency basically forces the chaotic one to match its rhythm.
Precisely. It's an acoustic and electromagnetic resonance model applied to biology. And Osman is very clear about the boundaries of this work.
This is so important.
He explicitly states that his services are complementary. They're designed to work alongside and absolutely not replace traditional medical treatments.
Right. He views his work as a scientific methodology meant to enhance whatever might be lacking in the allopathic medical approach.
Exactly. It provides the energetic scaffolding for the physical body to do its own healing.
That distinction is crucial. And, when you look at how he developed this capability, you realize it wasn't some overnight weekend certification course. His timeline is almost unbelievable.
It really is.
He states that he was born with an innate sensitivity to energy, and he began actively practicing at 8 years old. 8.
He's wild.
But he wasn't satisfied with just having a gift. By the time he hit 10 years old, he got serious. He actually asked his mother for a 30-volume encyclopedia on the science of yoga for his 10th birthday.
Yet most 10-year-olds want a video game console, but he wants a 30-volume text on ancient biological science.
It really highlights a deeply analytical mind from a very young age. He wasn't looking for mysticism, he was looking for mechanics.
Right. While his peers were navigating middle school, Osman was waking up at 4 a.m. every single morning. He was putting himself through 2 to 3 hours of rigorous physical postures and respiratory protocols before the sun even came up.
I can barely get out of bed at 7.
Same. And by the time he was 11 or 12, he attended a local adult yoga class. His grasp of both the theory and the physical execution was so far beyond the norm that the adult instructor actually stepped aside.
Wow.
Yeah, they let this preteen lead the class.
And all of this relentless, systematic pressure on his nervous system, it culminates when he reaches 19. He experiences a full-blown samadhi.
Yes, the big one.
Now, for anyone who isn't deep into the yogic literature, samadhi is essentially described as the mountaintop. It is the ultimate goal, a state of profound, non-dual consciousness. But what does that actually mean? Biologically speaking, what is happening to the brain in that state?
Modern neuroscience actually offers a really compelling lens for this. When advanced practitioners enter these states, brain scans show a massive downregulation or quieting of the default mode network.
The DMN.
Right. This is the network of interconnected brain regions responsible for your sense of self. So your ego, your worries about the past, your anxieties about the future, and your spatial boundary of where your body ends and the rest of the world begins.
So it all just shuts off.
Basically.
Yeah.
When the default mode network goes offline, you experience a dissolution of boundaries. You feel this profound, euphoric merging with everything around you. In the ancient text, this is absolute bliss.
It is the destination you spend your whole life trying to reach. And once you get there, the traditional advice is to stay there as long as possible.
Which is where Osman's story takes this hilarious, incredibly human left turn.
Yes. He achieves the ultimate spiritual state at 19. His brain is bathed in this cosmic bliss, and he hates it.
He finds it incredibly inconvenient.
He literally says, hey, this is upsetting my train of thought. I have to go to university.
Yeah, his father had laid down the law. Once you turn 18, you are out of the house. You have to support yourself.
Osman is a driven teenager. He's ambitious. He wants academic scholarships. He wants to build a career. And he admits he was crazy about girls.
Right. He has zero interest in disappearing into an ashram to become a celibate, detached monk.
And that reaction forms the philosophical bedrock of everything he built afterward. He realized fundamentally that spiritual evolution should not cripple your ability to function in society.
Exactly. It shouldn't make you incapable of paying rent or falling in love.
And if we fast forward to his current life, we see the ultimate test of that resilience. As we mentioned in the hook, 3 years ago, Osman lost his eyesight completely.
But the blindness didn't stop him.
Not at all. That hotel anecdote we started with is just mind-blowing. He needed to support himself while offering free yoga classes, so he got a part-time job in this bustling hotel.
And he mapped the entire building in his mind.
He knew the kitchen, he knew the beds, he knew exactly how to navigate without sight, and the owner trusted him with the most critical part of the business, the daily cash flow.
That requires an elite level of spatial memory and sensory adaptation. And when you look at that deeply grounded, highly functional reality and you compare it to his esoteric capabilities like the telepathic healing, it really forces a shift in perspective.
You realize this isn't magic. It is engineering.
Yes, he is using the exact same neuroplasticity that allows him to map a hotel blind to map the bioelectric fields of his clients.
It's the ultimate counterargument to the idea that this is all just placebo or wishful thinking. He treats his body like a piece of high-performance machinery. I mean, Lewis Howes talks to peak performers all the time on the School of Greatness, and they all have this insane baseline of dedication, right? Osman notes that at certain points in his life, his practice extended up to 18 hours a day. 18 hours.
It's almost unfathomable.
Even now, just to maintain the, as he calls it, quantum machinery required to safely treat critical care patients and maintain his high success rate, he practices a minimum of 8 to 10 hours every single day. He calls it sharpening the sword.
Let's really break down that level of commitment. 8 to 10 hours a day is a full-time, demanding job. It completely removes the romanticized, effortless veil from energy work.
I think of it like watching an Olympic gymnast. You see them execute a flawless triple backflip, they stick the landing, they smile, and it looks like they are defying gravity effortlessly.
Right, but what you don't see are the 10,000 hours they spent in a foam pit, falling on their face, tearing calluses, and crying in frustration.
Exactly. Osman isn't just floating on a natural gift. He is putting in the brutal professional hours required to maintain this extraordinary capacity. If he doesn't sharpen the sword, it dulls.
But right now, the listener might be feeling a sense of dread. If it takes 8 to 10 hours a day to achieve this, why are we even talking about it?
Yeah, most people barely have time to make breakfast, let alone sit on a mat for half their waking life.
Exactly. You have a mortgage, you have a commute, maybe you have toddlers. It sounds impossible.
And Osman entirely agrees with you. This is the crucial pivot. His personal maintenance routine for master-level healing is extreme, but his protocol for the everyday person, the blueprint for the rest of us, does not require anywhere near that time commitment.
It certainly doesn't require living in a cave.
And most importantly, it does not require you to give up the things that bring you joy. Rainn Wilson actually gets into this a lot on his Soul Boom podcast. How do we bring the sacred into the modern mess without putting on monk robes?
It's a great point, and Osman is incredibly passionate about debunking the myth of asceticism. If you look at Orthodox spiritual communities, there is often a very rigid, heavy dogma. You are told you must be a teetotaler, you must practice strict celibacy, you must eat a very specific, restrictive diet.
And ideally, you should withdraw from the secular world entirely if you ever want to achieve advanced physiological states like breathless awareness or a true Kundalini awakening.
But Osman flatly rejects that entire premise.
He dismantles it with a brilliant case study of one of his own female students. This woman was interested in exploring his methodology, but she didn't quit her job. She didn't move to a mountain.
She utilized his foundational 5-minute yoga program and slightly expanded it. She dedicated just 20 to 30 minutes a day to the practice, right in the comfort of her own bed before going to sleep or waking up.
And within 12 months, utilizing just that short daily window, she achieved the breathless state.
Which is incredible. We should probably clarify the breathless state, because it sounds terrifying to someone who hasn't heard of it. It's not suffocating, right?
Far from it. In advanced yogic physiology, the breathless state, or Kevala Kumpaka, occurs when the body's energy efficiency becomes so profound and the metabolic rate drops so significantly that the autonomic nervous system simply suspends the need for external respiration.
Right. The lungs literally stop pumping because the cells are fully oxygenated and operating on a different energetic currency.
It is a massive biological milestone. And she reached it in a year, practicing half an hour a day.
And what was she doing with the other 23 and a half hours of her day? She was living a completely modern life.
Osman points out that during this year of rapid energetic evolution, she was actively dating. In fact, she found her soulmate during this time, so celibacy was clearly not part of the equation.
Not at all. She walked her dogs on the weekends, she worked a demanding corporate job, and she enjoyed going out and having a few drinks responsibly. She was a fully integrated 21st century woman.
Osman is also refreshingly transparent about his own past to hammer this point home. Before he transitioned fully into his wellness business about 7 years ago, he was a highly successful, multi-millionaire commercial entrepreneur based in Dubai.
He was totally immersed in the corporate world.
He was driving sports cars, he was married multiple times. He specifies 6 sequential marriages, making it very clear there was no overlap or any haram relationships. But the point is, he was living a very active, full, romantic life.
He also talks fondly about his Friday routine in Dubai. After a high-stress week of running businesses, he loved going down to the local pub. He would walk in alone, order a few beers, and just strike up deep, meaningful conversations with complete strangers.
He openly admits to drinking whiskey, sometimes in what the Orthodox spiritual community would consider excess, simply to unwind from the immense pressure of his corporate life.
And he emphasizes that he did this responsibly. It never derailed his family life, it never caused him to miss work, and it didn't stop his energetic progress.
But it begs the question, why is a master-level practitioner advocating for going to the pub? If the goal is biological optimization, why not live the perfectly clean monastic life?
It really comes down to his deep understanding of balance and the psychological friction of dogma. It's kind of like what Mel Robbins talks about on the Mel Robbins podcast regarding habit friction. If a system demands too much, you break.
Right. Osman isn't denying that extreme asceticism has power. He is a scientist of his own body, so he tested it. He details a 6-month period where he undertook strict celibacy.
And during that window, he observed that his kundalini energy, that dormant evolutionary energy situated at the base of the spine, developed noticeably faster.
When combined with specific sound protocols, he estimated the development was perhaps 15 times faster than normal.
So the orthodox texts aren't lying. Celibacy does work as an accelerant.
It works, but at what cost? Osman concluded that while it acts as a massive accelerant, complete withdrawal from human intimacy and societal pleasure is profoundly unnatural for 99.9% of the human population.
If you force an unnatural state, you create psychological resistance.
Let's be real. Have you ever started a new diet or a workout routine, and the rules were so restrictive, like no carbs, no sugar, work out 2 hours a day, no social life, that you lasted exactly 4 days before you broke down and ate an entire pizza?
Yeah, we've all been there.
When a system demands you give up everything you love, the friction eventually causes you to abandon the system entirely. Osman removes the friction.
Furthermore, he argues that the energy generated by these practices needs a grounding mechanism. If you are generating massive internal voltage, but you are sitting isolated in a cave, that energy can become erratic.
Right.
Normal human responsibilities, navigating a relationship, doing your taxes, managing a team at work, they act as a grounding rod for the nervous system. The goal of generating this energy is to enhance your life, not subtract from it. He wants you to have healthier relationships, sharper focus at work, and a deeper appreciation for a good meal.
So if we are tossing out the strict lifestyle requirements, if we are saying you don't need to be a monk, then what is the actual engine driving this change?
There has to be a mechanical driver.
Right. If it's not behavioral deprivation, there has to be a mechanical driver forcing the biology to upgrade.
And this brings us to the absolute core of his methodology, the mechanics of evolution. Everything in Osman's system, the entire foundation, rests on highly specific breathwork. He refers to it as the 142 protocol.
Okay, let's break down the 142 protocol because the numbers he eventually aims for are pretty staggering.
The foundational goal for a serious practitioner is to achieve what he calls level 4 of this protocol. Level 4 corresponds to a specific breathing ratio, 16, 64, 32.
Let's just do the math on that for a second. That means you inhale slowly for a count of 16. Then you hold that breath, full of air, for a massive count of 64. And finally, you exhale in a highly controlled, slow release for a count of 32. That is almost 2 minutes for a single breath cycle. If someone tried to hold their breath for a count of 64 right now, most people would start panicking at 20.
And that panic is exactly what the protocol is designed to overcome on a cellular level. When you hold your breath for that duration, you are deliberately inducing temporary intermittent hypoxia. You are dropping the oxygen levels in your blood while carbon dioxide builds up.
Which triggers the body's alarm systems, right? The brain thinks, hey, we are suffocating.
Initially, yes. But over time, you train the nervous system to remain perfectly calm in the face of that rising CO2. Biologically, this is known as the Bohr effect.
Oh, I've heard of that.
By increasing your tolerance to carbon dioxide, you actually force the red blood cells to release oxygen more efficiently into your tissues and brain. Furthermore, that hypoxic stress triggers the release of hypoxia-inducible factor 1 alpha.
HIF-1L.
Exactly. This is a protein that promotes angiogenesis, the creation of new blood vessels, and neurogenesis, the growth of new neural pathways.
So you are literally forcing your vascular system to expand and your brain to build new roads? And what about that 32 count exhale? Why so slow?
The slow, extended exhale is the hack for the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve controls your parasympathetic nervous system, your rest and digest mode. By extending the exhale to be twice as long as the inhale, you are aggressively stimulating vagal tone.
Lowering your heart rate, dropping your cortisol levels.
Right, and commanding the body to enter a state of profound physiological safety, even while under the stress of the practice.
Osman is very realistic about the timeline for this. He notes that for an average person living a normal lifestyle, starting from absolute zero, it will take roughly 6 to 12 months of daily, consistent practice just to comfortably reach that level 4 ratio without straining.
You have to build the cardiovascular and neurological infrastructure first.
Once that baseline is established, you introduce the daily Kriya protocol. This is where the energy generation truly begins.
The mechanics of the Kriya round are precise. You inhale fully and slowly, but simultaneously, you engage your internal musculature to actively push the generated energy, the prana, up the spinal column.
You force it upward for a count of 20. He says you will literally feel a physical thermal surge of energy rising up your back.
And then, once it hits the top, you relax and begin that slow, vagal exhale, counting all the way to 100 as the energy subsides and settles back down the spine, bathing the nervous system.
But you aren't just blindly pushing energy up into your skull. Osman gives you an exact energetic bullseye to aim for.
Yes, the target is the region of the pineal gland. He maps it physically for the practitioner. It is located centrally in the brain, directly above the palate, right between the ears.
Why the pineal gland? Historically, Descartes called it the seat of the soul. But from a modern biohacking perspective, what makes that tiny gland in the center of the brain so important?
The pineal gland is fascinating. Biologically, it's responsible for synthesizing melatonin from serotonin, regulating our circadian rhythms and sleep cycles. But energetically, it is considered the biological hardware of the third eye or the Ajna chakra.
Right.
Some cutting-edge research suggests the pineal gland contains microcrystals that exhibit piezoelectric properties. This means that when they are subjected to mechanical stress like the intense pressure changes in the cerebrospinal fluid caused by deep, forceful Kriya breathing, they generate an electromagnetic field.
So Osman is essentially using breath pressure to charge the battery in the center of the brain.
Exactly.
Which brings us to the volume of this practice. If one Kriya round charges the battery, how many rounds should we do? Osman looks at both the historical texts and modern institutions for context.
He notes that in the classic text autobiography of a yogi, the author Yogananda recommends a baseline of 12 to 24 rounds daily for steady progress.
And the modern organization founded by Yogananda, the Self-Realization Fellowship, caps their official recommendation at a maximum of 100 rounds per day for lay practitioners.
Osman's personal recommendation bridges these numbers. For a serious student looking for tangible biological upgrades, he suggests aiming for 50 rounds a day. And then, only when the physical body has sufficiently adapted to that high voltage, you can push it to 100 rounds.
And we have to examine what happened to his own biology when he made that jump, because this anecdote is where my skepticism really flared up. Osman says he had been doing 50 rounds a day for about 3 years. It was taking him roughly an hour.
Then he decides to double it.
Right. He upgrades to 100 rounds, dedicating about 2 hours daily to this intense spinal breathing. I mean, you listen to the Joe Rogan Experience, and they talk about guys pushing the absolute frontiers of human endurance. This feels like the yogic equivalent of that.
It really does. And the context of his physical health at that moment is important. As a devout Muslim, Osman prays 5 times a day. This involves a significant amount of kneeling and bowing. Over decades, this repetitive mechanical stress caused severe chronic knee pain.
The cartilage was perishing from oxidative stress and wear and tear.
Simultaneously, he had a tooth that had become noticeably loose in his gums, likely a sign that his intense energy-draining work with terminal patients was taxing his immune system and bone density.
So he doubles the Kriya rounds, and he claims that within 2 to 3 days, 48 to 72 hours, the chronic knee pain completely vanished, and the loose tooth firmed up, locking back into the jaw.
It's wild.
Regrowing cartilage in 72 hours. Even with the angiogenesis we talked about, biologically, how is that even possible?
It sounds impossible under a normal physiological framework. Cartilage is famously avascular. It lacks a direct blood supply, which is why it heals so incredibly slowly, if at all. However, if we accept Osman's hypothesis of the accelerator pedal, we have to look at extreme systemic shock.
Think of your nervous system like an electrical grid built for standard 120-volt household appliances. Your body is humming along, repairing itself at a standard 120-volt pace. Osmond's 100-round Kriya practice is attempting to suddenly push 10,000 volts through that grid.
Exactly. When you flood the system with that level of oxygenation, pressure, and bioelectricity, you are putting the body into a state of profound, acute, eustress-positive stress.
Right, like a massive shock to the system.
It is possible that this extreme energetic surge triggers a massive mobilization of adult stem cells or radically accelerates the reduction of systemic inflammation that was preventing the cartilage from functioning smoothly. It's an acceleration of the metabolic repair processes that science is only just beginning to quantify.
But pushing 10,000 volts through a 120-volt wire comes with extreme risk. Tony Robbins talks about changing your state and utilizing bioenergy, but Osmond is very clear about the physical limits here. You have to know when to ease off the accelerator or you will melt the wires.
You definitely will.
If you push too hard too fast and you feel your nervous system destabilizing, insomnia, intense anxiety, physical tremors, you have to back off. You must let the physical hardware catch up to the software update you're trying to install.
And yet, despite that risk, Osman was constantly searching for ways to optimize and accelerate the process even further. He realized breathwork was the engine, but he needed a way to tune it.
Which leads us to his exploration of sound physics and his highly controversial stance on traditional spiritual lineages.
This is a fascinating pivot.
Let's talk about the trap of eternal contracts. In almost all traditional Eastern spiritual paths, there is a heavy emphasis on finding a guru and receiving formal initiation known as diksha. It is widely considered a mandatory step. You cannot learn the deepest secrets unless you are initiated into the lineage.
Osman vehemently opposes this practice.
Yeah.
He outright refuses to receive initiation from any guru or formally join any spiritual order.
And his reasoning isn't just rebelliousness. It is rooted in a deeply logical, albeit esoteric, understanding of the afterlife. He asserts that taking a formal vow of initiation creates an eternal, energetic contract. It binds your soul to that guru and their specific lineage forever.
He phrases it so pragmatically. He says, after I die, I want to have the freedom of choosing which paradise or what good thing I want to do. I don't want to be a slave to some spiritual order.
He views death not as an end, but as a transition point where maintaining your agency is critical. And he supports this view not just with yogic philosophy, but by looking at data on near-death experiences.
He points to the foundational work of Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross from 1969. She was a pioneer in near-death studies, analyzing the experiences of over 20,000 patients facing death and dying, noting the consistency of consciousness persisting beyond clinical death.
And he also references modern data aggregations, specifically mentioning the AI Grok, which estimates there are currently around 9 million documented reports of NDEs globally.
If we look at that data objectively and assume that consciousness does indeed survive the physical body, his caution makes perfect sense. Why would you risk signing a binding eternal contract with a guru whose ultimate destination you can't verify?
Exactly. Osman decides to bypass the middleman entirely. He states that once you perform the Kriya breathwork and you physically feel that thermal surge of energy rise up your spine, that is your initiation. Your own biology initiates you.
This completely democratizes the process. It's an open source approach to mysticism. And he applies the same open source scientific lens to how he uses mantras.
Right. Traditional texts prescribe chanting mantras as a form of religious worship or devotion to a deity. Osman strips all the religious narrative away. When working with tantric mantras, specifically the Mahavidyas, which are traditionally personified as the 10 goddesses, he approaches them purely as acoustic physics.
This is where we get into cymatics, which is one of my absolute favorite topics.
Oh, it's mind-bending. If you've never seen a cymatics experiment, you have to look it up. Scientists take a metal plate, cover it in a thin layer of fine sand, and then run specific sound frequencies through the plate using a speaker.
As the pitch changes, the sand suddenly leaps into action, organizing itself into incredibly complex, perfectly symmetrical geometric patterns. Different frequencies create different, repeatable mandalas of sand.
Now apply that visual to human biology. The human body is roughly 60 to 70% liquid. If a specific sound wave can instantly organize chaotic sand into perfect geometry, what is a highly specific repetitive vocal frequency doing to the intracellular fluid and the neurological pathways within your body?
Osman argues it is tuning your hardware. He treats these ancient mantras as resonant frequencies designed to stimulate very specific biological centers, known as chakras.
And he provides incredibly practical modern applications for this ancient acoustic physics.
He maps it out clearly. He suggests that if you are an artist, a musician, or someone who needs to unlock deep creative potential, you should target the second chakra, the sacral chakra, located just below the navel, by chanting its specific resonant mantra.
And if you are an entrepreneur,
Then you target the solar plexus chakra, located in the stomach area. This center governs leadership, willpower, and financial acumen.
okay, but let's connect the dots here. How does vibrating a sound in my stomach make me better at balancing a spreadsheet or negotiating a deal?
It comes back to the nervous system. The solar plexus region is the hub of the enteric nervous system, often called our second brain. It produces a massive amount of our serotonin and is deeply connected to the vagus nerve.
Right.
If you are an entrepreneur, your biggest enemy is chronic stress, which traps you in fight or flight mode. In that state, your amygdala hijacks your brain and you make poor reactive decisions.
But by using acoustic resonance to massage the vagal network in the gut, you dramatically lower cortisol and move into a parasympathetic state.
Exactly. With a calm nervous system, your prefrontal cortex comes back online. You assess risk better, you lead with clarity, and your financial decisions improve. It's not magic, it's neurobiology.
And when Osman combined this targeted acoustic physics with his massive Kriya breathwork engine, the results were exponential. He tracked his progress and found that by adding these specific tantric frequencies, he increased the speed of his Kundalini development by a factor of 15 over just a 90-day window.
He essentially hacked the timeline. Rick Archer often explores these profound awakenings on his Buddha at the Gas Pump podcast, talking with people like Dr. Bonnie Greenwell about the physical realities of Kundalini. Osman took that mystical process and turned it into an accessible, repeatable, and highly quantifiable science.
But here is the reality check.
Hmm.
You can have a massive engine with the breathwork. You can perfectly tune that engine with acoustic mantras. But a high-performance engine still requires physical fuel. If you put cheap gas in a Ferrari, it's going to sputter. This brings us to how Osman fuels his biology, his approach to biohacking, diet, and the absolute boundaries of sleep.
What stands out immediately is his lack of dietary dogma. Just as he rejected lifestyle asceticism, he rejects the idea that there is one perfect holy diet for everyone.
Yeah.
Personally, he thrives on a highly efficient, mostly raw plant-based diet. He shares a specific recipe he relies on. It's a blended smoothie of raw cauliflower, flax seeds, and whole oranges, including the peel.
I have to admit, tossing an entire raw cauliflower and a whole orange, peel and all, into a blender sounds brutally intense on the palate.
It does sound rough.
But biologically, it's brilliant. The orange peel is packed with limone and flavonoids that reduce inflammation, the flax provides essential omega-3 fatty acids for the brain, and raw cruciferous vegetables are nutrient-dense powerhouses. He states this combination provides an immense amount of prana, or usable bioenergy. He jokes that people look at his food in horror, but he doesn't care because of how it makes his engine run.
But importantly, he doesn't force his cauliflower smoothies on his students. He explicitly states that you can achieve these energetic states while eating meat.
He references Swami Vivekananda, one of the most historically significant yogis to bring Eastern philosophy to the West. When Vivekananda traveled across America, he happily ate steak, and it did not dampen his profound spiritual frequency in the slightest.
Osman explains the mechanics of this. He admits that when you are just starting out, eating a heavy, dense meat diet might make it slightly harder to hold your breath for that 64 count, simply because digestion requires so much oxygen and blood flow.
Right, but once your internal energetic engine is fully online, your digestive fire, your metabolic rate becomes incredibly strong.
At that advanced stage, your system can incinerate a carnivore diet or even junk food without losing momentum. Osman frankly admits that if he feels the craving, he has no problem walking into a KFC or a McDonald's.
It doesn't break his spiritual connection because his biological machinery is running too hot to be slowed down by it.
He is relentlessly experimental with his fueling. He wanted to test a natural method for boosting testosterone, rather than jumping straight to synthetic hormone replacement therapy.
And his experiment, he took 3 raw eggs, mixed them with a traditional Turkish yogurt drink called ayran, and drank it daily for 2 weeks. He monitored his body's hormonal response, using himself as a primary research subject.
It perfectly illustrates his pragmatism. He prefers whole foods straight from nature, but he keeps a close eye on modern biohacking trends. For example, He mentions a very popular, high-quality green supplement heavily endorsed by Stanford neuroscientist Professor Andrew Huberman on the Huberman Lab podcast, which costs around $80 a month.
Osman respects the science behind the supplement's formulation, but he also uses modern AI tools to analyze the ingredient list and find a chemically equivalent, lesser-known alternative for just $30 a month. He's optimizing for both biology and economics.
However, even a master biohacker can make critical errors. And Osman is incredibly humble about sharing a recent major mistake that almost broke his system. It wasn't about diet or breath, it was about sleep.
The sleep red line. Osman details a period where he was intensely focused on expanding his reach. He was building his YouTube channel, writing books, handling client consultations, and still maintaining his absolute minimum of 8 to 10 hours of energetic practice.
To fit it all in, he began sacrificing sleep. For months, he operated on just 3 hours of sleep a night.
And his body started to fail. You can't outbreathe severe sleep deprivation.
No, you cannot. He realized he was doing critical damage. He references a highly impactful 2026 episode of The Diary of a CEO, hosted by Stephen Bartlett, which featured a PhD sleep expert.
That expert laid out the non-negotiable scientific consensus. While 7 to 9 hours is the optimal target, 6 hours of sleep is the absolute biological red line.
Right. If you chronically drop below 6 hours, your cognitive function degrades, your immune system crashes, and your body cannot perform the necessary lymphatic clearance, the process where the brain literally washes away toxic amyloid beta plaques that build up during the day.
Osman heard that data, and he immediately corrected course. Despite his massive workload and his drive to create content, he instituted an unbreakable rule for himself. He forces his eyes closed, refuses to touch his phone, and stays in bed for a minimum of 6 hours every single night, honoring that biological red line. It shows a profound respect for the limits of the physical hardware.
Which perfectly sets the stage for the most ambitious part of his entire philosophy. Because if you optimize the breath, tune the nervous system with sound, fuel it perfectly, and respect its recovery cycles, what happens to that body over time?
This is where we look at the ultimate destination. Are we doing all this just to feel 10% less stressed at our morning meeting? Are we doing this just to lower our blood pressure a few points?
Osman's goal is vastly more ambitious. To ground his claims, he points to a recent peer-reviewed study out of the University of California. Research took mice and put them through a protocol designed to mimic the physiological effects of box breathing.
The results were staggering. They observed a 15 to 30% improvement across various health markers and a corresponding 15 to 30% increase in overall lifespan.
Let's contextualize that for a human. If the average human lifespan is roughly 80 years, a 30% increase adds 24 extra years. We are talking about living to 104, not as a frail patient, but with high vitality, simply through consistent advanced respiratory mechanics.
But for Osman, hitting 104 is just a nice milestone. It is not the finish line.
Based on his decades of practice and his study of esoteric history, Osman's ultimate target is a state he refers to as the deathless body.
The deathless body. Okay, we have to tread carefully here because to a modern ear, claiming you can achieve immortality sounds like pure science fiction or a delusion. But Osman brings historical receipts.
He points to figures like Mahavatar Babaji, the famously elusive, supposedly immortal yogi, detailed in autobiography of Yogi. He mentions Maheshwarnath Babaji, documented in the contemporary autobiography of the teacher Sri M.
And he highlights Valalar, a 19th century South Indian saint whose alleged transition into an immortal light body was so meticulously documented it became the subject of an 800-page PhD thesis by researcher Tulsi Ram. We even hear about these profound states described by figures like Deepak Chopra and Swami Sivananda, or the deep trances of Ramakrishna.
Osman isn't asking us to blindly believe in magic. He is positing a biological hypothesis. He theorizes that by using these intense Kriya protocols to radically slow down the cellular aging process, you eventually hit a break-even point where the rate of cellular decay perfectly matches the rate of cellular regeneration.
Aging essentially pauses, and if you continue to push the voltage, you can theoretically induce reverse aging.
And before we dismiss that entirely, we have to acknowledge that modern science is spending billions of dollars chasing this exact mechanism right now.
Yeah, Osman points out that the Japanese researcher Shinya Yamanaka, whom Osman refers to as Tanaka in his notes, won the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine for discovering that adult somatic cells can be chemically reprogrammed back into an embryonic pluripotent state.
These are known as the Yamanaka factors. Mainstream science has already proven that cellular age reversal is physically possible in a lab. Osman is simply arguing that we can trigger those same epigenetic factors internally, using breath and bioelectricity instead of lab chemicals.
But he couples this profound possibility with a massive cautionary warning. You cannot rush the installation of this biological software. He points to historical giants in the spiritual world as cautionary tales. Swami Vivekananda, despite his brilliance, died at the age of 39. Paramahansa Yogananda, who brought Kriya Yoga to the West, died at 59.
Gopi Krishna also wrote extensively about the severe physical toll Kundalini awakening took on his body when it wasn't managed properly. The Ranveer show often discusses these ancient texts, highlighting both the power and the danger.
Exactly. Osman believes these masters forced massive cosmic amounts of spiritual energy into their bodies faster than their physical nervous systems could adapt. They blew their biological circuits. To achieve the deathless body, you have to increment slowly. You have to let the physical hardware reinforce itself.
Which brings up the most beautiful, poignant question of this entire deep dive. Why? Why go through the grueling daily practice, the strict sleep boundaries, the slow, careful biological upgrades, just to stay in a physical body?
If you can achieve samadhi, if you can access cosmic consciousness, why not just shed the body, ascend into pure spirit energy, and float peacefully in the void?
He answers this by referencing the out-of-body experiences detailed by the contemporary teacher Sri M. Sri M noted that when you exist purely as an astral or energy body, you have perception, you can see the universe, you can hear it, but you lack density. You cannot touch.
If you reach out to touch a table or a person, your hand simply passes right through the physical matter.
And Osman looks at that and says, what if you want to hug your children? What if you want to hold your best friend or kiss your partner? If you are pure, detached energy, you cannot do that.
You require the density of a physical body. You need the biological agency of touch to experience the profound warmth of human connection. He doesn't want longevity so he can sit on a throne and be worshipped. He wants it so he can stay here, interacting with society, drinking a coffee, and hugging the people he loves. It completely shatters the stereotype of the cold, detached guru.
It is a stunning, deeply humanistic vision of our potential. He is advocating for becoming a multidimensional entity, of being capable of accessing the highest, most refined frequencies of quantum consciousness while keeping both feet firmly planted in the dirt, fully participating in the joy and messiness of the human experience.
We have covered immense territory today. We started with Osman's incredible baseline, a master bioenergy healer who memorized a busy hotel while entirely blind. We explored why he demands that spirituality exist in the real world, rejecting asceticism in favor of normal life.
We broke down the intense mechanics. The 16-64-32 breath hold that triggers angiogenesis, the accelerator pedal of Kriya rounds, and the somatic physics of using tantric mantras to tune the nervous system.
We navigated his pragmatic, adaptable approach to biohacking, diet, and sleep. And finally, we examined his ultimate pursuit of radical cellular preservation, the deathless body, driven by the simple, profound desire to stay here and experience human touch.
It is a sweeping, comprehensive blueprint that forcefully merges ancient biological technology with modern scientific understanding. And for any listener who feels compelled to explore this methodology further, Osman has made his foundational resources entirely accessible.
Yes, and we want to point you directly to his work, exactly as outlined in our sources. You can find his free 5-minute yoga program, along with all his contact information, on his official website. That's yogawellness786.com.
He has built a massive repository of free knowledge on his YouTube channel as well. Simply search for The Blind Muslim Yogi, where he has over 679 videos packed with these unique, practical insights.
If you are looking for more direct, structured guidance, his website links to his Patreon, where he offers paid live group sessions and one-on-one lessons. And of course, he offers his premium, highly specialized telepathic bioenergy healing services for critical care.
But please remember his explicit caveat. His services are complementary. They're designed as a scientific methodology to work alongside and absolutely not replace traditional medical treatments.
Also, be sure to hit follow on The Blind Muslim Yogi on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
As we wrap up this exploration, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over, drawing from Osman's speculations about human history. He suggests that ancient civilizations, the ones capable of engineering the pyramids with mathematical precision or carving impossible temples out of solid bedrock, might have actually possessed this very biological, lost science before some cataclysmic event wiped the knowledge out.
It forces a massive shift in how we view ourselves. If human beings are essentially advanced biological hardware, and specific ratios of breath and targeted sound vibrations are the software updates, what parts of your own code are currently lying dormant, just waiting for you to hit install?
That is a phenomenal question. Think about that the next time you take a deep breath.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Whether your goal is to chase radical longevity in the deathless body, or you just want to lower your cortisol so you can navigate your Friday a little better, take Osman's advice. Try just 5 minutes of conscious practice today. Floor that internal accelerator pedal just a little bit and see what happens to your engine. Until next time.